Hi, my name is Shawna Powers, and I have been in addiction for over 45 years, active addiction, and I'm really excited to be here and sharing my story, just because I feel that the more I share my story, the more healing I get. And I'm hoping that I don't trigger people in my journey along the way. And so here it goes. Excited, but also nervous. I have, as I say, I've been in addiction. I was in active addiction for 45 years, and now in recovery for over 7 years, and leading my life of honesty and willingness to examine every inch of my life without covering it up. A lot of times I feel that I myself am triggered by experiences that I've gone through, and totally wish that I could use to cover up the pain. But that's where it started. It was I started using because I was in so much pain as a young child. My story goes that I was sexually assaulted or sexually abused by my stepfather for many, many years, and I can start remembering it as early as 5 years old. So in turn, I, tried to escape as much as I could, and I cut. I started drinking out of their bar, and the alcohol was kind of my gateway into my addiction. And eventually that didn't help. I did come to realize that I needed to talk to someone about this. And at probably about 11 years old, I asked my mother to sit down and talk to me about it. And she was ready with a response that I couldn't even fathom. She basically, even before I even started talking about it, she basically called me a liar and told me to never talk about crap like this, and sent me to my room. So I had to deal with the pain, again, alone and isolated. And I think that's when cutting started, and to feel the pain. And I just recall now, in my recovery, I cut because I wanted them to be punished for their actions and not listening to me. And that was a really good reality for me just lately. I just realized that. So, I've stopped hurting myself, and I think in my childhood I wanted to see their reaction and get them to be hurting like me. So in turn, I eventually, as I said, the alcohol didn't help. So by probably about 13, I turned to pot, and that just kind of made it, seem kind of manageable. And I could laugh and be free, and so that dark secret kept on getting darker and darker and darker, and pushed it away and covered it up with more drugs. And by the time I was 19, I was fully engaged in anything that would keep me in non-reality, to a place of escaping, totally escaping every feeling that I ever had. And the way I used was to be able to talk to people, to party with people, because I was very isolated in my own head, and trying to keep these secrets. And so for 45 years of my addiction, I ended up getting married and having 2 children, and leaving my first husband because of his addiction to alcohol. And the funny thing is that I just continued harder into my addiction when we split up, and And I, in turn, raised my 2 children in a situation that breaks my heart to this day. The way I, escaped reality and wasn't a fully functional mother. And it's a part of my life that, I try to work through. In using through their growing up, I lost contact with my daughter, who basically went and kind of filled a void in her life and stayed with my family. And so years went by, and she got married, and I wasn't invited to her wedding. And even though I was in recovery at that point, she just didn't know any of my past. And my family built a really a large bridge between, not a bridge, but a gaping hole in between us, because they were protecting their lives. And so my granddaughter was born, and I didn't get to see the birth of my granddaughter. And so the addiction went on, and I covered up a lot of pain. And by the end of it, I was so sick and tired of being so sick and tired. The pills that kept me asleep were waking me up. The pills that helped in pain control made a mess of my life. I was addicted to oxys in the end, and then couldn't get enough Oxycontin, that I started using more and more cocaine, and that my life was purely involved from the minute I hit 19, and my drug of choice was cocaine, and that was my extent to wanting to escape. That drug really helped me, but it definitely made me not feel anything. So, basically all the drugs and alcohol and sugars and everything that I did to escape were basically turning against me or not working for me. Basically all the stuff that made me happy was making me sad. It got to a point where I was overdosing on cocaine. It wasn't keeping me awake. It was blacking me out. I was passing out. That's where, in all of my addiction, it got so crazy that, the drugs just weren't working anymore. And I was basically killing myself. When I stopped using, I stopped because I was just overdosing so much that I wasn't functioning in my work. I couldn't get to work anymore. I turned into this depressed, not being able to leave my bed. And the minute I actually stopped using anything, the memories, the trauma came back, and in full force of what my stepfather had done to me. And so all of a sudden I was crazy brain and couldn't control that part of my brain. And so the depression, the anxiety, everything just started overtaking. And but at that point, I couldn't even get out of bed to do anything. I could barely walk. I had lost so much weight. It was 2 months basically in bed, trying to stay away from any drug that I could change my feelings about. And I didn't even know that I was doing this. I didn't even know that I was, coming into recovery at all. And it was just a matter of, I put it down to my higher power finally stepped in and took charge and made me realize that I couldn't no longer take the stuff that I was taking to make myself feel better. It was just making myself feel worse. So after 2 months of being a complete, breaking down, and my son, watched me go through withdrawals that were unbelievable. I was such a mess. I couldn't hold my bowels. I couldn't, everything from throwing up to, basically the last day of staying in bed, I tried to make it to the washroom and didn't make it. Ended up lying on my bedroom floor, and this is how my, I think, 17, 18-year-old son at that time found me. And he was thoroughly into addiction at that point. Not thoroughly, but, he was trying pot, and he was using pot and experimenting with alcohol and that, and, seeing his mom face down in a pool of, yuck, that he basically ran upstairs and got a joint and asked me to smoke it because he was so sick and tired of seeing me like this and needed his mom. And something snapped at that point in me, and I reached out and called Alcoholics and AA and reached out for help with my work, and I didn't think they were going to help me at all. I thought for sure they were going to just, turn their back on me, but they actually were my best supporters, and they got me hooked into, my benefits, and I was able to finally get connected with help and what to do next. I was told by my provider that I would have to go to AA for the rest of my life if I was going to use their funding. And at that point on the phone, I noticed myself hit the floor, and just sitting there, or leaning on my knees, in just the shock of where I had become and what my life had turned to. Here a provider is telling me that I have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous for the rest of my life, and I truly didn't think I was that bad. I just thought I needed to stop. Stop what? I don't even know. So there on the floor, I finally reached out and said, I will do whatever it takes. And that started the road to recovery for me. I was booked into treatment, full-on, stay inpatient treatment, and that was basically the eye-opener for me that I wasn't alone in this. I had finally found a place where I belonged, but before I even went to the treatment center, I decided that, basically no doctor or no program was going to tell me that I had to go to AA. So I thought I'd better try this on my own, and found out how to do it. I didn't even know how to contact them, but eventually did it and contacted them. And I walked into my first AA meeting with, felt like lead bricks on the bottom of my feet, and I didn't even know what I was doing, where I was. And some gentleman reached out his hand to me and pulled out a chair, and I really became engulfed in a feeling of belonging, and that was a greatest part of my start to healing. Listening to other people's stories and feeling that I could talk, and no one was telling me to shut up or calling me a liar or not believing in me. I found a room and a group of people that understood and listened and heard, and then that became my voice. I finally got my voice of recovery. And it for 7 years I've been struggling with how to get my story out there, get my feelings, and learn from my journey. And I really pulled strongly to the fact that my higher power has kept me here to be able to tell my story and to be able to face the things that I need to face in recovery. And I can't do this. I can't heal if I'm under the influence of something covering up my true feelings. So with that, I have been through a lot of trauma counseling. I've been through a lot of help along the way, mental health and addiction counseling. I've been through psychiatry. I've been through, a stint in the psych ward, because in the second year of recovery, my emotions, I basically emotionally relapsed, and I couldn't hold it together. And, I think it was the trauma of finally being able to not pick up and use to cover up. Then basically, my third year in recovery, I got a little bit jealous of people being able to use and leave work and feel like they could drink their bad day away. And so my third year was a lot of soul searching for why I felt angry at other people's privileges, and it took away my recovery, focusing on other people's what they were doing in their life. So I had, in my fourth year, I really sat down and tried to focus more on my recovery and building. And it still is very hard for me to focus on me and not focus on what other people are doing, because I think now that that's my way of escaping the pain that I go through. If I involve myself in other people's tragedies, other people's way of living, that I'm not fully in my own head. And so, needless to say, that I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. When I found out my daughter was pregnant with my grandchild, and not being able to see her and let her know what's happened and what this family is like, I reached to the bottom of my soul and decided that the time was right, that I needed to charge this man with basic rape of a child. And so I went down that road, and it was very, very painful. It was a share that I never thought I could do. But I did have a lot of support with the police and the detective that I had on my case. She was just phenomenal. And the sexual assault team that was out there for help in Victoria, BC, where I was born and raised, and I was born here. But anyways, I was raised in Victoria, and they just have this phenomenal reach out available for people that are going through trauma and abuse. And so I've really connected into them, and it took probably about 6 months to get all the paperwork and my story and the report done. And the detective took it to Crown, and Crown molded over the way they do, and they came back with a we can't take this case on because we don't think we can win it. And that was, a step back for me. I was prepared to face him and tell my side of my story. And, I didn't need to, have some stranger tell me that they couldn't take my case on because they couldn't win. And I just thought, wow, this is another knockdown. But in turn, it changed my daughter. She was asked to come in and tell her story of what had happened to her as a child, and basically her first story to report was my family's lies, and because they were feeding her all this horrible stuff. And so when the verdict came down that the Crown wasn't going to take the case, my detective had to tell everybody that it wasn't going to go to court. And when they contacted my daughter in turn, through those months of waiting, finally was able to see the real truth. And the detective told me that she had done a 180 and realized that the story that she was told all her life wasn't a true story. And so she had to wrap her head around that, and we're going through a lot of processing and stuff. And this year, before I hit my 7th year at Christmas, we got together, and she actually had me and my son over for breakfast on Christmas morning, and it was the best joy of my life. I now got my granddaughter, and she's now going to have another child, and I'm getting to watch the process. And it does take its time, and we're eventually getting to a stage where I can talk freely around her. But it's hard for her to listen to or hear my story. And I've just realized that I've been told that she had no idea that I was addicted to cocaine, and that's taken a toll on her, and she's backed off of wanting to talk to me, and that I've got to give her grace and the ability to find it in her own self to go through her process. It really hurts, and that again, my journey has put a wedge into our relationship, and so that's hard to take. But it's now I'm at a stage in my recovery that I hold those setbacks or walls, or it's definitely like a brick wall that's hit me in the face, and I have to sit in it and realize that this is another lesson that I have to learn. And she's definitely not on the same page that I am. It's taken me 7 years to get to where I am, and it's just almost 2 years or a year and a half that she's had to basically feel the life-changing crap that she's had to deal with. And so I've got to give that grace and take a step back, and again, I think it is just to focus on my own recovery and know that this is again one of those lessons that I have to go through, and I am privileged to have the ability to now speak up and have this voice. And even in my work now, I am able to say to them, I have mental health and addiction issues, and when things get to a stage where I can't handle where I'm at and something's triggered me, I now have the ability to be able to speak and tell my works at where I don't run away anymore. I don't, connect to a new position in the company and burn bridges and attack people. I still have my moments, and I still have the anxiety that is just built up inside of me explodes, and I have to really control that into the way of sitting down and searching why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and this is all part of my journey, my recovery. It's been a hell of a road. I am so grateful to be in this position now of learning to sit in the pain and learning to feel it with from the depth of my soul, to the ability to look at my hands and feel that I'm right there and I'm still alive, and I have the ability to search why I'm reacting the way I'm reacting, and instead of wanting to basically kill myself, I've the suicidal part of my journey has been very intense. That's my first go-to is to destroy and not be in this place of pain. And as I said right at the beginning, that I have come to realize that a lot of the pain is presented in the ability to hurt myself to make others suffer. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And I've had my eyes open to that I don't like people playing in my sandbox. It's hard for me to have a life and have people walk in and basically tell me how to live my life. Like, you're going crazy, you need to go see a doctor, you need to this and this and this. And for me to explain that isn't the way I want to live my life, and I will no longer feed into a pill is what's going to help me get better. It doesn't. It for me, it doesn't make me heal. It just basically covers up the pain, and then I get hit with it down the road again. So I'm on this journey, this road to get every ounce of the pain out, and sharing my story like I have today is getting a freedom in my ability to share it, and to it's not so gut wrenching when I've told it and told it and told it. It's not so painful anymore. And in this share, I haven't been talking about every ounce of my pain and every ounce of my recovery. It's just a short, not short, but it's a picture of my journey and into recovery, and hopefully I can basically help somebody else who doesn't have the ability to speak up for themselves, and just to be able to feel the pain and embrace it with the knowledge of being able to learn and accept the fact that I accept the fact that I'm put on this earth to at this point in my life to tell my story, to hopefully heal myself and connect with others that have the same journey, and that's pretty much all I've got to say today about where I'm at, and hopefully I haven't triggered anybody or made somebody feel uncomfortable. Again, this is my life and my story, and I'm opening up to the ability to take the stage and have a voice and be able to speak about it more clearly and have a vision of where my story started, middle, and ended. And feeling a little bit nervous about doing it this way. It's challenging me to get out there and speak and have this voice. And I'm really proud of my voice. I have changed my last name to Powers because I feel that it's powerful journey that I've been on. I no longer hold this stepfather's name, and I've legally changed it to Shawna Powers, and I'm proud of that ability to step into my own being. So that's all I've got to see today. Thank you.